Taoiseach, obviously the programme for government makes many commitments on dealing with the homelessness crisis and the provision of affordable housing. Now, I have raised two different instances of people who are in homeless emergency accommodation, who get employment and who, as a result, go over the income threshold and then are threatened or actually put out of emergency homeless accommodation. I've now encountered a third family this week. Two people working in homeless accommodation, can't afford the rents, which I want to remind you in my area, average €2,200. Who could? And they are being told they have to leave emergency accommodation. Now, I'm just wondering, Taoiseach, could you please do something about this? I mean, it's bad enough with the housing crisis. It's bad enough we can't deliver the social housing. And by the way, if there was the social housing which you say you're going to supply, these people wouldn't be thrown out of social housing because their income rises, even if it's above the threshold, because you have a differential rent. But ironically, if they're homeless, because the state hasn't delivered the social housing, they go over the threshold and they're evicted from homeless accommodation. I mean, this is bizarre. And this is in a council area, which, as I told you yesterday, run by Fianna Fáil and the Green Party, where last year, 0 council houses built. This year, they're going to get 5. 5. Right? This is the supply you're talking about. And that's a Fianna Fáil Green Council. And I just wonder, does the Minister aware of this? Does the Minister know that's what's going on? When you're getting up saying we're going to deliver supply, does he know that there are local authorities that are producing 0 council houses or 5 next year? I mean, seriously, like. Because there's a big, big disconnect between the plans, the rhetoric, the promises, and then what's actually going on the ground. So can I just appeal to you, and obviously, last point connected to this, the reason those families are being thrown out is because your government and successive governments, and I've been appealing, I think about 5 different housing ministers I've been asking about this, the income thresholds, which have been, the department have been reviewing them since Alan Kelly was the Minister for Housing. I've got the same answer from every single minister. We're reviewing them. It is the longest review I have ever seen in my life, right? Never completed. Now, do you know what I think when a review goes on that long about income thresholds is, well, it reduces the numbers on the list, doesn't it? It makes the stats look good. That's why they don't want to review it upwards, because they don't want to increase eligibility for social housing. That's what's going on, Taoiseach, honestly. Like, it's obvious at this stage. There can't be any other explanation. Unless you're going to tell me they're going to vary it next week. I'd love if you told me that, but I don't believe you're going to tell me that. You're going to tell me it's being reviewed.
Deputy Boyd Barrett, I mean, my view is that no one in a homeless situation should be removed or asked to leave a homeless environment just because their income went up. If they're still homeless, they should be, in my view, facilitated to stay in the facility until they get a social house. And there needs to be a common sense perspective applied by the local authorities in that situation. Now, in terms of you were saying, is there a disconnect with local authorities? I mean, I just said in my reply, the Minister has provided an additional 200 staff to local authorities because he did recognise, because we are, since we came into office, very serious about social housing. But there's been, there's been a number of years when it took a while for that to catch up. We want to do 9,500 this year in terms of direct bills. The approved social housing bodies have taken up a lot of that slack in terms of providing a lot of housing. Those bodies as well have done good work in terms of the Fáilte Very Trust and those in terms of Housing First, in terms of the homeless strategy. The local authorities are being resourced now to ramp up their housing programmes and to get projects underway. Some local authorities are doing very well, others not so well. And some local authorities quite simply had lost, from a human resource perspective, the capacity to deliver meaningful social housing programmes. And so that has been rectified by the Minister. And I think we'll see stronger and higher outputs from local authorities to balance the output from the approved social housing bodies in respect of social housing. Because I do believe that it's preferable that we would build more social houses as opposed to relying on the HAP system unduly. The HAP system has been there for 10 years now nearly. But we can't just move on from that like that. You can't just wish it away. But what we can do is over time rebalance that equation. And we would then be freeing up more houses then for the private market as well and for cost rental and so on if we did that. But I keep coming back and, you know, we can have all the politics about it and I respect people's views and different perspectives. But we do need to get supply up. I mean, 20,000 houses is not going to solve our housing crisis. And before that, it was even lower. Then COVID has affected it, without question, in 2020 and 2021. But without housing supply, we're not going to resolve the issues around housing. And we need to give people access to a whole range of options in terms of owning homes, owning apartments, renting homes, renting apartments. And that involves cost rental, affordable housing. And the state is engaged, you know, the state will be has allocated $4 billion per annum.
Okay,
over the next 10 years to try and do that.